to Get a Grip. I'm Alex.
And I'm Christian.
And this week we will be talking about the key differences between Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4. So as you probably heard, Universal Analytics will be going away in July of 2023. So now is a great time to start playing around a little bit in GA4 and learning a little bit more about it so that you're all set to go once Universal Analytics goes away. There's a lot of key differences right off the bat. I mean, even just going into the platform, you can notice a lot of difference just in the way the reporting interface looks. So things are set up a lot different with just how you create reports, how data is tracked, hits versus events. So we'll talk a little bit about some key differences, just give some general recommendations for setting up your GA4. Christian, right off the bat, what are some of the main differences you tend to notice in GA4 between Universal Analytics?
Sure, so if I recall the very first time I entered GA4, I realized that there just wasn't as much data in there, just not as much reports in there. In Universal Analytics, you have everything to look at. You have all these numbers and all these reports to look at. You don't have nearly as much, and it may be the lack of content may be overwhelming for a lot of people. But I just realized that there's less content because there's more automation involved, and it's a much cleaner interface, and there's just a lot more to look at and a lot more to dive into with this platform. So that's what I would say the main differences are. There isn't a lot that's done for you anymore. A lot of it is something that you have to go in and put in yourself.
So within GA4, there are 4 different types of event categories. The first 2 are automatically collected within GA4, so that data will be available for you to view. And those 2 types of categories are automatically collected events and enhanced measurement events. So as I said, both of those are automatically collected. They include just important metrics like people scrolling, interacting with the page, so downloading, playing a video you have on a page, scrolling around on a page, different things like that you would want to take a look at. The next event category would be recommended events, and those aren't automatically collected, so you would have to set those up, but those include different types of parameters that would be recommended that you track, and that's kind of based on whether you're like an e-commerce platform, services, things like that, and just recommended that you set up. So those kind of vary depending on what data specifically you're looking to collect, but you can get even more specific with the last category, which is custom events.
Yeah, custom events is really where the fun starts. This is where you can really take a deep dive into your website and look at how people are interacting with it. Like we have clients come to us and say, hey, can we start tracking this particular button on this particular page? And we absolutely can do that. We can use another tool called Google Tag Manager, and we can hook that to our Google Analytics 4 property and start tracking every single button on a website. So with custom events, I wouldn't say the possibilities are endless. There are certainly limits, but there's a lot more we can do with that, and there's a lot more custom things we can push to it that we couldn't do in Universal Analytics.
I know specifically custom events can be extremely valuable in informing marketing decisions. So for example, one of our clients that we track, so they say they have their weekly ad. You can track how far people are scrolling in an ad. So say if you put the tags to see how far people scroll, and then everyone's kind of stopping around like page 5 if there's 10 pages and no one's really making it to page 10, then you can kind of know, okay, we're making our ads too long, we're wasting money paying graphic designers to set up these pages, paying people to put in the time, and no one's really scrolling that far ever, so then we can cut them back and see, okay, well, we need to stop at page 7, needs to be the cutoff. So kind of informing like how far people are scrolling, or similarly, you could put it on like even just regular web page content and see, okay, no one's really getting to the bottom of my page. Is it because the content's not relevant? Is it's improperly organized? Is it not interesting enough? No images, things like that. And it's kind of a good way to do A/B testing. So for example, you could have 2 pages that could be set up relatively similarly, and then set up one with one layout, maybe more images, maybe a little more catchy, whereas one could be more like succinct to the point, and then set up those tags and see which page people are scrolling more on, and it can kind of inform you like how you set up your ads, how you set up your page content, different things like that, and then you can use it as like a form of A/B testing, or even just to gather insights to inform whatever decision you're trying to make or what potential adjustments you might need to make.
I will say it really depends on you and what you want to track, so that's something you have to think about too. You have to think about what you want people to do on your website. Think about what a conversion is to you. Is it a submission form? Is it a purchase? Think about that and try to measure that using this awesome platform.
I think that brings up another point too, is it definitely is a little intimidating at first, but I know, as you mentioned, with all the different reports you can set up and all the different things you can track, it can be, once you get a good feel for it, you might be tempted to kind of just track everything, be like, oh, I want to know this, I want to know this, I want to know this. And it gets to a point where it can be overwhelming. So you really want to, as Christian said, define what your specific goals are and track those. Not that you don't want to track some other stuff, even if it's not your primary goal, but if you can get kind of overwhelmed with the reporting and there's a point where you're going to set up just too many things to track and too much data where it's going to be more harmful than helpful. So kind of like Christian said, identify is your primary purpose to have people add things to their shopping cart and then proceed to checkout? Is it to have them contact you? Is it have them download a file? So putting those metrics on your important, and not that you can't have multiple. So I would say a primary one that everyone, regardless of industry, should have is probably your contact us. You want to track if people are contacting you, and then specifically what pages they're coming from on your contact pages. Are they coming from your like a service page, from the call to action on the bottom? Do you have it on the top? Where they're coming from? That's always a beneficial one, no matter the industry. Then for e-commerce, ones that are always helpful is abandoned cart. I know is pretty beneficial, so it'll let you know when people have stuff in their cart and then just choose not to proceed with checkout. So you can kind of take a look at those. Same with the ads thing we had mentioned. I know for services, there can be a lot of contact us is obviously an important one, but also looking at what specific service page people are looking at most, how they're interacting with the page layout, things like that are all very beneficial.
Yeah.
Cross-device tracking is a super helpful tool that exists in GA4 that doesn't exist in Universal Analytics. In Universal Analytics, there's not a real robust, cohesive way to track data that's not just like website data, be it on a laptop or a desktop. Whereas in GA4, you can pretty robustly track app data across different devices. So iPads, smartphones, things of that nature. You can track a little bit more cohesively through apps and website data, which just gives you a more robust measurement than traditional Universal Analytics would.
There's a really cool section in GA4 called the Tech Overview, which is what we're talking about. And you can go in there and just look at the breakdown by device, by screen resolution, screen size, all these different things that you couldn't really look at. You can really get into the granular information that you're looking for. Like if you're an e-commerce platform, you can look at how many purchases you have by smartphone, tablet, computer. You can look at how many purchases you have by screen size. You can look at which screen size is the most profitable, which can give you an indication of how you want to structure your website, how you want to cater your ads. There's so many things you have at your fingertips with the tech portion of it, and it is a really interesting report to look at. That's what I highly recommend looking at and exploring more, is the tech and the tech overview section of Google Analytics 4.
I think an important thing to note if you're looking at that specific section that you're talking about is the importance of a mobile responsive website. So for example, if your website is mobile responsive so it looks good on your desktop, but it's not mobile responsive, where if someone pulled it up on, say, a Samsung or an iPhone or just a different device, and it's mobile responsive, essentially would mean that it's not fitting the screen, auto-fitting the screen properly, so they're having to scroll, they're having to pinch and zoom, move things around, or it's just responding really slowly. So if you look at that section there and you're seeing that across maybe mobile devices, your analytics are not looking good, your bounce rate's a lot higher, traffic's not there, that could be an indication that hey, you need to go mobile responsive, which you already should be going if you're not already, but that could just point out kind of maybe some issues that you're having, or if the traffic is the same on a laptop as it is on a mobile device, but you're getting less engagement on one or the other, that could be a beneficial thing to kind of see, okay, why is this occurring and how can I adjust it? Because ultimately traffic's great, but you want to be making those conversions across whatever device you have your audience looking on.
Absolutely.
Then there's just a lot of other minor differences in terminology, just in how long the data is stored, how the data is tracked. There's also a helpful debugging tool that can help you resolve issues faster that doesn't exist in Universal Analytics, and I know that can be extremely helpful.
Yep. As well, and my favorite feature of GA4 is probably the custom reports feature, or just a reports feature. This is way better than it was on Universal Analytics. The system they had on Universal Analytics, you have to make a report and go in there and type in things to exclude certain data. It is way more interactive on Google Analytics 4. Just with the default data we've had, we've been able to make some awesome reports with, like I said, abandoned cart ratios. We can make reports about revenue by screen size. We can just find all this information that we couldn't get before. And the reports are pretty easy to use. I will say it can be intimidating at first, because you go in there and you have all these different kinds of reports. You have your freeform, you have your table, you have your path exploration. So many things for you to look at. I would recommend just going in there and just playing around with it. have a question in mind. Ask yourself, which is the most profitable device that I have, or which device has the most visitors. Have that question in mind. Go into the report section of GA4 and just play around with it, and I guarantee you'll have your questions answered and more, because it is a really cool report creation platform. And you can export up to PDFs, Excel sheets, make them pretty. If you want to present that data, it is a really cool feature.
I think that's a great segue into the ultimate question of, should you switch to GA4 from Universal Analytics? And I'd say the answer is kind of briefly what Christian said. I would say, don't do away with Universal Analytics. Obviously, it's a little more straightforward. You're used to using it. You still have that data. There's no real reason to make a complete switch quite yet.
Yeah.
But it is, as Christian said, great to start playing around in GA4. You don't want to be caught off guard when the time finally comes and just overwhelmed. It does an extremely even just the look right off the bat is extremely different, not to mention the actual features once you get into it, the reporting, the advanced tools, just how things look. So it's a great way to now start getting in, setting up the profile, start tracking things that are important, just playing around with the reports, seeing, okay, what reports could I use, what reports are not really relevant to me, what things am I not tracking that I should be tracking, and then just as well as getting that sense of familiarity so that you're not caught off guard. 2023 seems like it's a long way off, but it'll
It's
come.
not that long.
It's not that long, just about a year.
It'll
So,
sneak up on you.
yeah, exactly. And then with just how different things are, it can take a while to work. And I know Google is still working on adding some different features, adjusting some features, refining some things, fixing some things. So even if you did make an ultimate switch now, things still wouldn't look the same quite then. There's going to be a steeper learning curve. But it's a great thing to kind of look at it more as like a playing around with it now, experimenting, trying things out, just having fun with it. And then when the time comes to make the ultimate switch, you'll have a better understanding. You'll have some data and reports already set up. You'll kind of know where to go from there. But for now, you'll still have your universal analytics to fall back on for your regular reporting and just for that sense of comfort for what you're used to using.
Yeah, a common question people have is, will my universal analytics go away? And the answer is not exactly. It will start collecting data, but if you still want to go back and look at your historical data from before July 2023, you can do that. But I will say this is the time to make a GA4 property. If you don't have one, make one, because now is the time to jump on it, to learn it, be familiar with it. This is the time to really explore it, because like we said, a year it's not too far away from now. So I'd say get on that. It's a super interesting platform. It's a pretty cool platform too. So. Yeah.
I think that brings up one other common question we hear a lot. It's how hard is it to set up a GA4 property, or how different is it from setting up a Universal Analytics property?
It is pretty different, but I wouldn't say it's hard. There are many tutorials online, and we'll probably make one at some point. It just involves getting your measurement ID from Universal Analytics, and there's a simple button that says Set up Google Analytics 4, and from there it's a pretty easy process to be walked through. So it's not a hard process. It will take you maybe 5 minutes, if that. So that's one more reason for you to move over.
I think that about wraps it up. Any final comments from you?
I'd say just be comfortable with being uncomfortable with this platform, because this is a platform that was made to adapt to privacy laws and made to adapt to AI changes and all that. So be uncomfortable with something new, and it'll be great. Just explore it, and that's my advice, I guess.
Yep. I'd say the same. Don't be intimidated by it. It's not right now. If you just are kind of like messing around and learning how to use it, it's not going to hurt anything. It's only going to help.
Yeah.
It could be kind of easy to get frustrated with setting up the different reports or figuring out where to find some of the usual things you like to look for, or those might not even exist. So it can be a little intimidating and might make you want to not really use it. But as Christian said, the only way to get good at it and kind of like know what reports you need, know what to do, know what to track, is to start messing around with it now. And the pressure is not really there now, because you still have that universal analytics to fall back on. But if you kind of wait, it's an inevitable thing. You're going to need to learn it at some point. So you might as well now, before UA goes away and you don't really have that capability anymore. So get in there, test it out, make some reports, start tracking things, and then slowly make the transition as 2023 sneaks up on us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching, and be sure to visit our website for the full blog article, as well as other articles on Universal Analytics, Google Analytics 4, marketing, digital marketing, all that good stuff.
We like marketing, so
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.